In Pisa, a marble tower leans over the city like a disaster that history refused to complete. For more than 8 centuries, it has looked as if gravity was always seconds away from winning. Yet the tower has not fallen. It has survived wars, earthquakes, engineering debates, and time. The mystery is not why it leans. The real mystery is why it still stands. To understand that, we have to go beneath the marble into the unstable ground that first betrayed it. Because Pisa's most famous failure began before the tower was even finished. In 1173, builders began a bell tower for Pisa's cathedral complex. It was meant to be elegant, vertical, and permanent, a symbol of wealth and faith. But beneath its beauty was a hidden weakness, the ground itself. The foundation was shallow, and the soft subsoil below could not carry the dream evenly. By the time only a few levels had risen, the tower had already begun to sink. The flaw was visible early, but stopping a monument was not simple. Medieval Pisa was ambitious, wealthy, and determined to leave a mark in marble. The tower was not just a building. It was a declaration. Then history intervened. Wars and political struggles interrupted the work for decades. But the delay may have helped save the tower from early collapse. While the city fought, the soil slowly compressed beneath the weight. The pause gave the ground time to adjust to the impossible load. What looked like delay became accidental stabilization. When construction resumed, the builders faced a strange problem. They could not make the ground stronger, so they tried to correct the tower above it. Later builders made upper stories slightly different, trying to pull the shape back toward balance. That choice gave the tower one of its most haunting features. It does not only lean, it subtly curves. The monument became a negotiation between gravity and human persistence. Floor by floor, century by century, the builders kept going. The tower finally reached completion in the 14th century, already famous for the flaw that defined it. A perfect tower might have been admired. The imperfect one became unforgettable. But admiration did not erase danger. Over centuries, the leans slowly increased. Each fraction of movement raised the same question: how far could it go? The tower was heavy, tall, and built over ground that never fully stopped yielding. Its center of gravity became the invisible line between survival and collapse. If that line moved too far, beauty would become ruin. By the modern era, the lean was no longer just charming. It was alarming. One of the world's most famous structural flaws was approaching a dangerous threshold. Engineers could not simply straighten it without risking the monument itself. A monument like this had to be saved without erasing the very flaw that made it famous. The goal was not to make Pisa straight. The goal was to keep it alive. In 1990, the tower was closed for a major stabilization effort. The danger was real enough that every movement had to be measured. Engineers added temporary protection, counterweights, cable restraints, and careful monitoring. But the most elegant solution came from beneath the tower. Instead of forcing the tower upright, engineers carefully removed small amounts of soil from beneath the higher side. This allowed the structure to rotate back slightly without tearing itself apart. It was a delicate intervention, almost invisible to visitors, but historic in engineering. The tower was not rescued by brute force. It was rescued by patience. The same soft ground that caused the lean also became part of the solution. That is the paradox at the heart of Pisa. The enemy was not only gravity, it was imbalance. And the solution was not domination. It was controlled adjustment. The tower survived because no one tried to erase its story. Every ring of marble carries the evidence of adaptation. Its beauty comes from the same instability that once threatened to destroy it. In another city, this might have remained only a structural failure. In Pisa, it became a global icon. But icons can make danger look deceptively harmless. For centuries, people saw wonder. Engineers eventually saw a countdown. The countdown stopped only when the tower's movement was carefully reduced. By the early 21st century, the tower had been stabilized for future generations. It still leans, but now that lean is watched, measured, and protected. The tower's survival is not luck alone. It is the result of flawed ground, historical interruption, architectural adaptation, and modern restraint. The first accident gave the tower its lean. The interruption gave the ground time to settle. The adaptation gave the tower its curved body. And modern engineering gave it a future. This is why Pisa remains so visually powerful. It is not a perfect monument. It is a monument held between error and genius. Its fame begins with a mistake, but its endurance belongs to science. Under the stone is a story of soil. Inside the tower is a story of correction. Around it is a story of a city that refused to abandon its impossible tower. The tower was built as a bell tower, but it became something stranger, a visible argument with gravity. Its bells once gave sound to the city, but the structure itself became the louder message. The message was simple. Even flawed things can endure when understood. But understanding came slowly. For generations, people tried to explain, correct, admire, and fear the lean. Every solution risked making the problem worse. Add too much weight, and the tower could sink further. Remove support too carelessly, and the foundation could fail. Straighten it too aggressively, and the monument could crack. The tower demanded a solution as unusual as the problem itself. That solution was almost invisible to the eye, and that made it brilliant. The tower did not need to stop leaning. It needed to stop falling. This difference is the key to the whole mystery. A perfectly straight Pisa would lose the wound that made it legendary. A collapsed Pisa would become only a memory. So engineers chose a third path: preserve the lean, reduce the danger. That choice turned the tower from a medieval accident into a modern conservation triumph. And it explains why the tower still feels alive. It is still negotiating with the earth beneath it, still watched by engineers, still protected by decisions most visitors never see, still leaning because the lean is now part of its identity. This is why the Leaning Tower of Pisa belongs in history, not as a failure, but as a warning. It warns that foundations matter more than appearances. It warns that beauty can hide instability. And it warns that saving the past requires understanding before action. That is the deeper story behind the tilt. Not a tourist joke, not just a postcard, not a simple accident, but a monument shaped by weak earth, interrupted time, human correction, and restraint. The tower stands because it was stabilized without being stripped of its imperfection. Its flaw became its signature. Its danger became its mystery. And its survival became one of architecture's strangest victories. So when the tower appears to be falling, remember what you are really seeing. Not a building frozen in failure, but a masterpiece suspended between collapse and control. A tower that should have fallen, but instead became a lesson in patience. And in that impossible lean, Pisa reveals a truth about human ambition. We build toward perfection, but history often remembers what almost failed. The Leaning Tower of Pisa has not fallen because its story is still being held. By soft earth, by patient science, and by the careful hands of those who refuse to let it disappear.